So now we have a Photoshop document, which is a document that we need to protect. This document is a full resolution document. It's got all our creative edits in it, and we want to maintain those creative edits at full resolution. So we haven't resized anything, we haven't changed its physical dimensions. So we need to start thinking about, okay, what are we going to do next with this image? Where's it going to output? Now we've done input, right? So we've inputted images by taking them, or we've inputted by putting them into Bridge and uploading them to a computer, and all of those things have happened on the input. Now we want to start outputting, and our output for one was to do creative edits and maintain that creative edit image, but we want to start deploying it, right, to whatever it is we're going to do. So first we're going to start practicing resizing this image and changing the format of this image for print. Now we're going to isolate that and create a separate image for doing that, because we're going to change the dimensions, and when we start changing the dimensions of images, we start to degrade the image to some capacity, and we want to be able to retreat back to this Photoshop document in case, right? In case we want to isolate maybe one of these adjustment layers, or we want to do something new to it, we really want to be able to come back to it. So what I do first is, when I'm thinking about what it is I'm doing next, in our workflow, we've established that we have our raw image first. That's unedited. We go to PSD and we make all our creative edits. The next thing I want to do is create a TIFF for print, because that's going to be the next dimension smaller than our PSD. And then our web JPEG is our last output, and that's going to be the smallest file size. So we're constantly notching down in its overall physical dimension. So I'm going to save this as a TIFF file under the format of TIFF in my TIFF for print file that I've created. I'm going to save this. I'm replacing because I already had created that. Now I don't want any image compression. I want to keep everything by default here and say OK. It's going to warn me that including layers, these layers over here, is going to increase the file size. That's OK for right now, because I'm going to show you how to flatten those. You'll notice up here this changed to TIFF. Now I'm ready to create these edits, because when I reveal this in my Finder, you can see this TIFF file we're working on currently is right here, and the PSD is a totally separate file, so it's protected, all right? So if I come back here to our Photoshop document, and this is, or sorry, as our TIFF document in Photoshop, I'm going to flatten these layers first. Okay, and I'm flattening those in order to decrease the file size, because it's unnecessary data that we don't need. So under these submenus, this submenu up here where you see these stack of lines, under the layers window, I'm going to flatten this image. You can also find this under edit, actually sorry, is it under layer? It should be under flatten image prior to flattening. It's already flattened now, so it's not highlighted. So now you can see that it's flattened into a single layer. When we do this and then change this image size, you'll see that the file size decreases considerably. So if I go to image, I go to image size here. Right now it's showing our width and height in pixels. I'm going to change this to inches. I'm going to do that because we're going to output to a physical print size, set size of paper, and paper is measured in inches. The dimensions are given to us that way. Now, what I like to do is I like to shrink this image down slightly smaller than the printed paper that I'm going to. And I do that because I want to have the entire image fit on a piece of paper. Now, one of the kind of standard sizes that we do for portfolios in this course is a 8.5 by 11, which is a standard letter size format. With our printers, that works really well, and often it's in line with what you'll most likely see if you ever wanted to have one at home. So I like to keep kind of consistent there. Now you'll notice here that we're close to about 70 megabytes in the file size right now, because we've maintained this height and width of the original image. And the resolution right now is 300 pixels per inch. This is a standard print resolution. This is what the printer wants to print at. So we're going to keep that 300, but what we're going to do, because our longest dimension right now is our height, I want to have a little bit of white border on top and bottom. So what I'm going to choose to do is take a 1/2 inch off of the total height of this, so there's a 1/4 inch of white on the top and bottom, which will give a little bit more than that on the sides. So watch this, our height is at 20. I'm going to change that to 10.5 because I've taken a 1/2 inch off of that 11-inch dimension of our paper, 8.5 by 11, remember that. And this width now also fits on there, but it took 1.5 inches off to maintain the proportion of the image that I shot, right? So now notice, it jumped from being almost 70 megabytes down to about 20 megabytes, okay? So if I hit OK, you'll see that it'll shrink here. Now the last thing, again, I need to make sure that I save this. So if I go to File, Save, I'm already in TIFF, so I'm not worried about overwriting that PSD. If I go to Reveal in Finder, you'll notice that it got to about 20 megabytes. The PSD is about 216 megabytes because it still is maintaining our full resolution and all the data that we added to it. All right? So now we're going to again get in that mindset of output and where we want this image to go. The image we just formatted for TIFF was for print, and it's going to go to an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Remember, that's at 300 pixels per inch for its resolution. At the image dimension that we need for that size of paper. Now that's just kind of a standard size paper. I chose it because it's in general a step up from what would be your kind of photo album pictures, and would most likely be that next step that you would take before maybe going much bigger than that. Now you have that TIFF for print, but I'm going to take us back to using our PSD to get us to web, all right, to getting to that web JPEG size that we want. And we want to downsize because we've been progressively going down in our image size, literally taking pixels out of that image by either shrinking the dimensions, or now we're going to shrink the dimensions in pixels, but also take out some of that resolution as well. So we're doing that because we want our web JPEGs to be very portable. We want them to load quickly on the web. We want them to open up as fast as possible. And we also want to save file size because screens and the resolution of most screens are going to only max out at 72 pixels per inch anyway. So there's no need to have that 300 pixels per inch. So that taken into account, I want to show you how to go from your PSD and to skip that TIFF print if you want to and go straight to that web JPEG and do that safely without overwriting any files. So I've reopened our PSD file. I'm here in Photoshop. I've got all those original layers and edits that I made, and I'm at that max width and height in pixels for my resolution and 300 pixels per inch. So this is the original file, that raw file, taken to edit form and saved as a PSD, and I haven't changed any size or dimensions because I want to maintain safely those edits that I've made so I can come back and do other things with it if I need to. Now, before I talked a lot about saving first in that format that you want to go to and doing that first as a safe way to do things. You can do that now if you'd like. You can go File, Save As, and save this as a JPEG if you'd like, or we can go directly to saving as for JPEG through another means of duplicating this file. Okay, so we're going to duplicate basically the image and open it up automatically as a separate image that then we can save for web. So rather than talk about it, let me show you. Over here, I'm going to open up a new layer in this PSD. You can do that down here by creating a new layer with that icon. You can also select this icon, the stacked lines, and duplicate layer, or create a new layer. Or you can go up to layer and create a new layer. Shift-Command-N on a Mac does that as well. So if I create a new layer here, it creates a new empty layer. What I'm going to do here is go to my image mode here, my image menu, and select Apply Image. That's going to open up a dialog window. Here under Layer, I want you to make sure this says Merged. Then I also want you to make sure that this says Multiply. So when I select OK, what you can see is it's basically created a snapshot of all the edits here onto that new layer. Right? Now, this in essence has become a stacked image on top that's identical to the edits that I've made. Okay? Now, what I want to do with this though is I want to duplicate this layer, but instead of duplicating it on this existing document, I want to duplicate it to a whole new document. So if I select OK, notice what happened. Here's our PSD up here. You can delete this now if you'd like, that snapshot, or you can save it as part of this PSD. It'll just increase your file size if you do that. But here we have a totally new independent image that is a snapshot. The layers are flattened and compressed into a single layer, the adjustments that we made in that PSD. But now you still have that same file dimension. So if I go to image and image size, you're still at 4000 by 6000 at 300 for our sample, same image size. Now here you can choose to save now as a JPEG and save that separately if you're feeling at all anxious. You can close this out and say don't save for our PSD, and now we don't run that risk if we don't want of overwriting that PSD file. And here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to File, and I'm gonna use a preset menu that Photoshop creates to effectively save for web. Okay, so if you'll notice what I just did there, I went File, Export, Save to Web. That's going to open up a new dialog window once my computer catches up, and this is going to encode that image properly for viewing on the web, these images. So here you have a preset. We're going to stick to JPEG for now. These other file formats do something unique. Usually it's for animation or for giving our image transparency, but I don't want you to worry about that right now. I want you to make sure that your quality is at least 80 or above. There's other technical reasons why you would use other quality. for this image, but let's go ahead and stick with 80 or above. It's totally fine. I want you to make sure that this dialog that says convert to sRGB is checked, because that's the color space of the web, and we want to make sure that matches. That's a universal color space. Now down here, this is the big question: what dimensions to make this? Now we're using, I'm going to zoom out here so you can see, we're using a vertical image, and when using a vertical image, it's not going to be, it's going to fit onto your screen. Your height is your longest dimension, but it's not going to be the same longest dimension as you would have if it was turned sideways on a screen, because monitors or screens are wider than they are tall, right? So they're formatted to be horizontal or kind of landscape, and not kind of, they are landscape in format. You don't see monitors this way. So just keep in mind that I'm going to talk about this image size in those terms. I'm going to talk about them in terms of vertical and horizontal, and that's going to change our dimension some. So if we were in that horizontal format, I want you to use your widest dimension as at least 2,000 pixels. All right, so if we went into our dialog box and did image size and changed our width with a horizontal image to 2,000, it would show you the proportionate height of that image. And that height would be around, for this image, would be around 1,300, I believe. And so we're going to stick to assuming that it's roughly 1,500, because that's going to help us now define the width that we want to use here on this image, because the width is going to be smaller with a vertical image than it is with a horizontal image, like I just said. Okay, so I know that's a little bit convoluted, but if you can try to just remember some of the presets I'm going to give you for now, it'll hopefully start to make sense as we progress throughout the course. So I'm going to change that to 1,500, and you'll notice that it comes close to our height being 2,000. So if you wanted to, you could downgrade this some, and I think that would be fine if you went to 2,000. Yeah, it gives you 1,333. That would be fine as well. I don't mind either way. And what we're going to do is, you have the option real quick. I'm going to show you, I'm going to preview this on the web. It's going to show you the size of that image on a website. So let me close this out here. And then that's how it is recognized full screen on the web. And you can see it's pretty large, right? So if I back out here, I have to subtract on my, or zoom out on my monitor or my web browser in order to see the full image. Now, what is nice about WordPress and the web platform that we're using is that you'll be able to upload this image at this size, and it's going to automatically want to give you the ability to select that image and see it in preview as a full image, and it will compress it, but it will maintain a little bit sharper resolution for us as well. So that's why I'm choosing this kind of slightly larger file size than would maybe be normal. Okay, now this is debatable, so I just want you to keep in mind that these dimensions that I'm using are a bit on the high end and will give us a bit of a larger file size overall, meaning they will load a little bit slower on your website, but it'll be at the expense of making certain that all the different templates that WordPress uses and all the different monitors that are going to be used are going to effectively see your image as quality as we can get. Okay, now, so I'm going to go to save here, and I'm going to make sure that I'm under my web JPEG. And you can title this what you'd like. So if you want to title it the same as the file name, you can, or you can call this, you know, if it's for a certain assignment or it has some title that you'd like, feel free to go ahead and do whatever will help you organize. So if I hit save here, I'm just going to keep it untitled for now. You'll notice that if I go to image and image size here, it hasn't changed. I just exported a copy of that. So I actually need to go to, on my Mac, I need to go find that JPEG. Okay, in this case I did a duplicate because I did another demo or a test run, so ignore that please. Now you'll see here's our image at 1333 by 2000. So if I open up this image in Photoshop, let me drag that to Photoshop right there. You'll see if I go to image, image size, there's the 72 as our pixels per inch, 2000 by 1333. Alright, now you do obviously have the ability to shrink that a little bit if you'd like, if you have an idea of what you want, but that's what I'm recommending for right now. Now, one more thing I want you to quickly notice here. Notice how it says the image size is 7.63 megabytes. Okay, that is how Photoshop is reading it, but when it's on your computer and it'll be loaded onto your website, it's going to be actually compressed and much smaller than that. It'll be 1.3 megabytes. Now, this is the image that you're going to then upload onto WordPress, and that's going to be a proper web-sized image. So if I preview this image, it'll look something like that on your screen. Alright? Now, we've ended here with a PSD that we've taken directly to a web JPEG. Alright, now I'm going to just quickly recap all of this so you can see me do it one more time, and then I'm not going to talk much about it while I do it, okay? So I'm going to reopen this PSD. I'm going to close these out so we're not confused. I'm going to create a new layer, okay? I'm going to image, apply image, merged and multiply. Then I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I'm going to open that duplicate layer in a new document. Then I'm going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. I'm going to make sure it's JPEG, at least 80 in quality, convert to sRGB if it's not already, and then I'm going to change my width here to, actually I'm going to change my height. I'm going to do that 2000. I think that's fine. That's close enough to that 1500. I'm going to then save. I'm going to make sure that lands in my web JPEG folder under our file organization. Okay, so this one I'm going to just overwrite that last one so you can see. And that replaces it. Now remember, this isn't going to be located or saved here. It's going to be something you have to go to that web JPEG file, and this is what you're going to upload to WordPress. Alright, I hope that helps, and this again will be also a separate video. This portion of web sizing, it'll be a standalone video in our Google Classroom. So under classwork, there's going to be a how to turn in your work and how to web size. You'll see this video there as well.